everybody, and welcome to another sermon from the Cigar Pulpit. I'm Nick, the Bishop of the Burn, and with me, as always,
it's Gator.
And we are joined by a special guest today on the phone. We have Drew Newman of JC Newman Cigars. Hello, Drew.
Good afternoon, Bishop. How are you?
I am great, and you are joining us for a very special reason. So I had a friend of mine through Instagram, Adam Stevens, send me a couple of the American cigars. We got the American number 3, which I believe measures 4.5 by 50. And so we got these, and they're a little hard to come by here in the middle of the country, and so they're awful special. And so we figured we'd go ahead and invite Mr. Newman onto the show and talk a little bit about the cigars. So we appreciate your time, Drew.
Absolutely. Happy to be here.
So would you tell us a little bit about what we're about to smoke here?
Sure, absolutely. So there are many wonderful cigars handmade all around the world, but there really is no cigar like the American. And what makes the American unique is that it's the first 100% all-American cigar. And what I mean by that is that we hand roll the American in our 109-year-old cigar factory in the historic cigar city of Tampa, Florida, using all-American heirloom tobaccos. But not only are all the components of the cigar itself made in America and grown in America, but everything about the project is all-American. So the wood in the boxes, for instance, is grown in America, in Ohio. The boxes are made in Miami. The cellophane tubes are made in Pennsylvania. The hinges on the boxes are made in Massachusetts. The paper on the bands and the labels are made in Wisconsin using inks from North Carolina. Literally from start to finish, every part about this project is all American, which really speaks to who we are as a family and as a company. And we're a 124-year-old, 4-generation American family-owned and operated business. And so we're really excited to share the American and really help celebrate the fact that the United States has a very rich and long-standing tradition of premium cigars. And it's a very special product, and so happy to share it with you guys today.
Yeah. So from my research, it seems that from between 1885-ish or so and like the 1920s, so right up before the Great Depression, there were 150 cigar factories operating in and around Tampa, making like 500,000 cigars every year and everything. And you guys are, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys are located in Ybor City, right?
So we are located in the historic El Reloj Cigar Factory in the Ybor City Historic District. And El Reloj in Spanish means the watch, and that refers to the famous clock tower on our factory in Tampa. It's a beautiful 109-year-old building, and that's where we roll the American, and that's where our headquarters is. We roll other cigars there, too. It's a very special building that we're in the process of restoring right now in preparation for our company's 125th anniversary next year. And so we'd love to invite you and all your listeners to come visit us in the cigar city of Tampa, Florida next year to celebrate our anniversary and to tour what really is the last operating cigar factory in Ybor City.
Definitely.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, this is Gator, by the way. If I'm not mistaken, the American was the first cigar rolled in that factory, around 1910?
Exactly. And so when my great-grandfather founded our company in 1895, he started our business in Cleveland, Ohio. And my grandfather moved our company from Cleveland to Tampa in 1954. And that's when we bought the historic El Reloj Cigar Factory and moved into that building. But our home, our building, El Reloj, was built in 1910 by the Regensburg family. And the very first cigar that they rolled in the building in 1910 was the American. And we have a beautiful old image of our factory from the University of South Florida's archives with a big banner that says "The American" flying at the top of our clock tower. So even though we are just now reintroducing the American as the first 100% all-American cigar in the world, the brand's history and lineage goes back more than a century. It's a historic American cigar brand.
So you've been pretty instrumental in this project. Like, is it safe to say that this has pretty much been your baby to bring back the American?
Yeah, this is a project that we've been working on for about 3.5 years now. I'm sure you guys know, but when you create a new cigar, it's a really long process, in part because we're dealing with all natural tobacco that has to be fermented and aged. It's not a machine that we're using to make these cigars, and so creating a new cigar takes years. And we've been working on this project for 3.5 years. It took us a while to get it right, in large part because we're doing a lot of things in the States that nobody else is doing. And so we kind of had to figure out how to make a all-American cigar by hand in the States all over again. So it took a while, but we think it was well worth the wait. And I think you'll agree that it's a unique cigar, a special cigar, and it's just a wonderful way to celebrate the American cigar tradition.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, it comes in 4 sizes. You've got the Churchill, Torpedo, Toro, and the Robusto, which we'll be smoking today.
Yeah, that's what we're selling it now. We roll it in a few other sizes just for fun, but those are the 4 sizes we've released so far, and so happy you guys can enjoy it.
Yeah,
That's
definitely.
awesome.
So
Well, I'm going to go ahead and cut my
he's
cigar.
getting ready to cut. I'm getting ready to
Nice.
light, and we're gonna get this guy going here.
I don't want to wait any longer. We're going to fire this up and try it out.
While you guys are lighting the cigar, let me tell you a little more about what's in it. And so again, the cigar from start to finish is all American. So of course that means it's only tobaccos grown in the United States in the cigar. And what you'll taste at the beginning when you first puff on it really is the wrapper. And what we have on the American is Florida sun-grown wrapper. It's tobacco grown on an 8-acre farm just north of Orlando by Jeff Borshowitz, a longtime cigar retailer and cigar enthusiast in Florida. And you may have seen the Drew Estate Florida sun-grown cigar, which has become very popular too. But that cigar has Jeff's tobacco in the filler. So the American really is the first cigar with the Florida sun-grown as a wrapper. And so it's unique in that as well, that it's the first time anyone has seen in generations what Florida-grown tobacco is like. The binder is traditional Connecticut broadleaf, the most popular American premium cigar tobacco. And Connecticut broadleaf has been grown in the Connecticut River Valley outside of Hartford since the mid-1700s. So it's a historic American heirloom cigar tobacco leaf. And our 8th-generation family farmer in Connecticut who grows the binder for us also grows a little bit of the Connecticut Havana seed filler that we blend into the American. And the rest of the filler is grown by the Mennonites in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, where the Amish and the Mennonites have been growing American cigar tobacco since the 1600s. And so what you're tasting with the American really is history. It's the fact that we have centuries of cigar history in the United States that is showcased in the American with its 100% all-American tobacco.
That's really neat. I'm getting kind of a little bit of a, I don't know, cedary, creamy, maybe like a toasted bread kind of taste off the beginning of this thing. I don't know, Jeff, what are you getting off of it?
I don't know if I'm getting toasted bread.
A little bit.
It's kind of a medium-bodied smoke. It's very flavorful. I can't put my finger on what it is. Toasted bread, not so much.
I don't know. kind of get the toasted bread.
Hey, everybody's got a different palate.
So there you go. How many people do you have rolling the American down at your factory there?
Right now we have 2 hand cigar rollers make the American. Each one rolls about 100 cigars per day. So our production really is 200 cigars a day, 1,000 per week, more or less. But the way we're rolling the American is quite unusual. And what I mean by that is if we go to our factory or others in Nicaragua, Honduras, the Dominican Republic, their rollers, bunchers, packers, everyone is paid on piecework. The more cigars you roll, the more cigars you pack, the more you're paid. With the American, we wanted to make sure that every cigar was perfect. And so we took away the incentive for somebody to roll too quickly. And so our cigar rollers are paid a salary, and they're salaried employees, and they roll about 100 cigars a day, more or less. But more important than the number is just making sure that every cigar is perfect. And so we have 2 rollers in Tampa and a team that supports them, that ferments and prepares the tobacco, that bans the cigars, that inspects the cigars. It's a little factory within a factory in our El Reloj cigar factory in Tampa. And starting in February, you'll be able to come to our factory and visit and see the American rolled in our El Reloj factory in Tampa.
And that was something I wanted to get to. Is I know that you guys are doing a lot of renovation and everything. I follow it on Instagram, and I really like seeing all the pictures of all the old photos and various items and stuff that you guys seem to be finding all over the place and in your factory as you're doing this work and everything. What can you tell us a bit about the renovation work that you're doing? But then in turn, you're opening up your factory as a cigar museum early next year, correct?
Yeah, exactly. And so our factory El Reloj was built in 1910. It's been used as a cigar factory for more than a century. And when it was built 100 years ago, 109 years ago, it was thought to be the largest cigar factory in the world. It was built to have 1,000 employees there rolling cigars, making cigars every day. So it's a beautiful building built in the Ybor City style, which means 3 stories plus a basement running east to west to capture the northern light. And so it's a beautiful example of Ybor City's cigar history there. But as I'm sure you can imagine, after 109 years of wear, tear, and love, the factory is showing its age.
Mm-hmm.
And so in anticipation for our 125th anniversary next year, we've been working with a historic preservation architect and some engineer and construction folks to restore El Reloj to its grandeur, to restore it to the way it was a century ago. And so we're making some sort of structural improvements just to shore up the building so that it will last for another 100 years. We're making some operational improvements that will allow us to ship more cigars, for example. And then we're also making some visitor improvements as well, which will allow us to turn El Reloj into what we hope will be the premier cigar tourism destination in the United States. And what I mean by that is, if you think about wineries in California and elsewhere, and people who go there for a tour, a tasting, to really understand what it takes to grow grapes and to make wine, or the Bourbon Trail or craft breweries that welcome visitors in for tours and tastings, we want to do the same for premium cigars. We want to be that destination for passionate cigar aficionados to come to the cigar city, learn how cigars are made, see it, even roll a cigar yourself if you want to. And we want to do that in the cigar city of Tampa, Florida. So starting February, when our construction is complete, we will rededicate our El Reloj cigar factory and open it up to visitors. And included in there will be a new cigar museum telling the story of our 124 years in business, as well as the history of Ybor City. We're going to have a theater showing old cigar films and news clips and stories about Ybor City. We'll have an event space so that we can host events and meetings, weddings, conferences, and so forth in a cigar-friendly atmosphere. We're going to have a new handmade cigar factory within a factory on our third floor where we'll be rolling the American and other cigars. And when you walk in there, it's going to feel like you stepped back in time. You step back into a cigar factory from Ybor City 100 years ago. And we're going to have a factory store as well where you can see and buy cigars that we roll in Tampa, as well as from every other little Ybor City cigar company as well. There's a bunch of little 1, 2, 3 roller cigar companies. We want to showcase their cigars as well so that visitors can come in and see Ybor City and the history and be able to experience the cigar culture and the cigar community firsthand. So we're very excited by it and hope that you and your listeners will come and visit us in Tampa early next year.
Yeah, definitely. That sounds really cool.
I think a trip can be arranged.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Now, I want to throw in real quick. You were talking about construction there with the building and whatnot, and we were talking about the 2 rollers you have. And I've got to compliment them. This is a perfectly constructed cigar. And, I mean, it's just, it's solid. It is smoking well. I've got a great line.
It's a super tight burn line.
Oh, absolutely. This is a very impressive cigar.
Well, thank you very much for saying that.
So your family, you've pointed out your family business has been active for 124 years. What does it mean to you to have brought back through your efforts to have brought back the American and put your stamp as a 4th generation member of this family, to put your stamp on the company's history?
You know, it's a real privilege for me to be able to continue a legacy that my great-grandfather started 124 years ago. We're a family business. We've been that way for more than a century. And our one goal as a company is we just want to continue rolling cigars by hand 100 years from now. We make our cigars today just like my great-grandfather did in 1895, and we want to continue this tradition and this legacy for another century. And so being able to restore El Reloj is one way to do that and signals our investment in the future. And in addition, restoring our factory in Tampa and introducing the American and celebrating the history of Ybor City is our way of also giving back to the city of Tampa, which has supported us and supported the cigar industry for so long. Before the cigar industry came to Tampa in the 1880s, Tampa was little more than just a village at the mouth of a river. There was very few people there, no industry, and it was a tiny little town. And so the cigar industry really is what caused Tampa to develop into the city that it is today. And now that we're the last operating cigar factory in Tampa, we feel a social and a moral obligation to our community to be able to tell the story of Tampa cigar heritage and keep that heritage, keep that legacy alive for future generations. So it's very exciting and wonderful and humbling to be able to continue this legacy and this tradition as a family as well as a community in Tampa.
Now, you touched on something in your answer there about how you'd like to continue the cigar making process as the way you've done it for the next 100 years. And I know that you serve as the general counsel for your family's company, correct?
Right.
And I know you've been very active in the efforts lobbying the FDA and the federal government and speaking out on behalf of the premium cigar industry in regards to federal regulation. Can you tell us a little bit about your work on that front and kind of what you
Sure,
see coming to the cigar industry in the next couple of years?
absolutely. So first of all, we're a family business, owned and operated by our family, and so as a family business, all of us kind of do a little bit of everything, whether it's operations, marketing, product development. But in my case, I'm the Newman who went to law school, which also makes me the company lawyer. And the reality is that the world that we live in today means that the cigar industry is being regulated by the FDA here, being regulated by similar entities in pretty much every country around the world. And so a lot of the work that I do is related to that. I lived in Washington, D.C. For 10 years and worked for the government there for a while. So I'm one of the unique people in the industry in that I can roll a cigar with my own hands and understand the process very well, but I also understand the legal world and the regulatory world very well too. And so I spend a lot of time going back to Washington these days, just trying to help our legislators, trying to help the FDA understand what a premium cigar is and how it's a handcrafted, all natural, old world tradition, and why treating it and regulating it like a cigarette or like an e-cigarette or even like a mass market cigar just really doesn't make sense, because our goal again is to be in business for another 100 years. In order to do that, we need to make sure that the government allows us to do that. These days it takes a lot of time and effort trying to help ensure that that we can all be enjoying premium cigars in the United States for another 100 years.
So then, in terms of, I've spoken with Frank Herrera, and he's kind of basically said the FDA regulations are what the FDA regulations are at this point, and everybody's just going to have to figure out a way to live within them, and that sort of. And I'm kind of paraphrasing what he said, so I'm not saying he said that exactly, but within that, like, so what do you see in the near future for the cigar industry dealing with these FDA regulations and various things like flavor bans and everything else?
Well, I think there's still a lot of unknowns. When the FDA decided in 2016 to expand its authority beyond cigarettes and smokeless tobacco to cover every type of tobacco product, the FDA basically made that decision and at the same time said, we'll figure out many of the details later. And so here we are 3+ years later, and there's still a lot of unknowns. Specifically, there are three parts of FDA regulation that worry us the most. The first being pre-market review, substantial equivalency. The second being HPHC health testing, and the third being warning labels. And for the first two of those items, no one really knows, including FDA, how premium cigars are supposed to go through the substantial equivalency pre-market review process and how health testing is supposed to work for premium cigars. And so it's kind of like trying to fly the plane while you build it, which in one sense, from the agency's perspective, I guess it works. But as a manufacturer trying to comply with the law and plan and so forth, it makes it really challenging and frustrating, the fact that we are trying to figure all this out while it's happening.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and it seems like there's a number of deadlines that are coming very soon, and to your point that there's still a lot of details still to be fleshed out. I mean, I guess, and I'm not asking you to necessarily comment on this, but it doesn't seem that the situation is very well organized if details need to be planned out, but deadlines are looming.
Yeah, I mean, the cigar industry has been working together to challenge FDA's regulations, specifically the lack of clarity on a lot of this stuff, and we've been able to have some success in that regard. I mean, for instance, there was a deadline to test premium cigars, but FDA still hasn't said how we're supposed to do that. There aren't any international standards or reliable ways for testing premium cigars like there are that exist for cigarettes and so forth. And so we've been successful in getting that delayed. And to be more specific, so where health testing stands now is that that the deadline won't apply until FDA first issues guidance on how testing is supposed to work. And so it's just kind of one of those things that we're working through. But even as recently as yesterday, we're pushing this issue in Congress, pushing in the courts, pushing with the agency, basically just trying to highlight the fact that premium cigars are a distinct class of goods, and you can't take a one-size-fits-all approach and regulate them like cigarettes, regulate them like vapors, that we have to tailor the regulation of premium cigars to the unique characteristics of all-natural, handcrafted product.
Well, speaking of crafted all-natural products, we're very much enjoying the American over here. Jeff,
Amen.
Thoughts as
Thank you.
Thoughts as you were smoking there, Jeff?
Like I said, it's just got an incredible flavor to it. I'm gonna steal something here from another podcast, but I'm stacking dimes. I mean, this is so well constructed. I'm genuinely enjoying the cigar, and I love the fact that it's all American, front to back, and that has to be hard for you to be able to do, because there are so many components that go into not only the cigar but the box and everything else. Did you have anything that you had trouble being able to get made in America for this cigar?
So that's a great question. At the beginning, I was very concerned about the blend. I mean, there's enough premium cigar tobacco grown in the States that I knew we could find enough cigar tobacco, to roll something, but I was worried in particular that the blend would be one-dimensional, that it would be kind of flat or even too sort of mellow. But after some trial and error, we were very happy to be able to craft what we think is a really solid medium-bodied cigar that's flavorful, that's enjoyable, that's not this sort of one-dimensional product. I mean, to be more specific, I didn't want the American to be a gimmick. I mean, we're making a real world-class cigar. I mean, it's unique in that it's all American, but it's also still a really, really good cigar. And so at the beginning, it took us a while to figure out the right mix of tobacco. And just to be even clearer on this point, tobacco isn't all the same. And so, like, for instance, the cigarette tobacco and the chewing tobacco that's grown in Virginia and North Carolina and Kentucky and elsewhere, none of that is used for cigars. It's a different species. It's like an apple to an orange. They're both fruit, but they're very different. And so the amount of cigar tobacco that's grown in the States is relatively small. And so we just don't have as much to work with like we do when we go to Nicaragua or the Dominican Republic and can blend tobacco from all over. So being able to get a good blend was our first real challenge, but we're really pleased with how it turned out and the flavorful medium-bodied cigar that we're able to create.
You've definitely pulled that off here. This is an excellent cigar.
Thank you.
Yes.
And, we since starting the podcast, we've smoked, and I've smoked cigars on and off for many, many years. But it's been one of those things where, we've had some cigars that we've really enjoyed, and we've had some cigars just horribly underwhelm us. And this is not one of those. This is a great smoke.
This is definitely one that, while I mean,
it would be very awkward with you on the phone if it wasn't. but it really is a good cigar.
Well, and admittedly, while it might be a cigar that's kind of maybe a little more difficult for some of our listeners to track down, just due to
seek it out.
the limited supply that your rollers can produce and everything else. It's definitely one that if you do stumble across one somewhere, or or in my case, have somebody say, hey, I can get these for you. Do you want them? I would highly recommend all of our listeners do that, because it's an experience of a cigar. You to be able to say you're having a fully all-American cigar. I think it's definitely worth the time and effort to track one down.
And I hate to say this, going into it smoking this cigar, I'm not going to lie to you. I really thought it was a gimmick cigar. It's not. It's a great cigar. So I was going into what you were talking about, where you didn't want it to be a gimmick, and it definitely is not.
Really, really appreciate it. Cigars are all about relaxation and enjoyment. Nobody needs a cigar. We choose to light up and enjoy a cigar for pleasure. Somebody makes a glass. Somebody makes scissors. Somebody makes towels. There are a lot of things out there that exist for utility, and you kind of just need to have, but cigars aren't like that. And so it's really important to us, particularly as a family business, to be able to connect with the people who enjoy our products, because they're made purely for relaxation, enjoyment. So it's really meaningful to hear you guys enjoy the cigar, and because that's really what it's all about. But particularly with the American, to be able to have a cigar that's enjoyable, but also connects back to the history of our country, the history of our family business, of the cigar city of Tampa. It's just a really special thing, I think, and really appreciate you guys lighting up the American.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Drew, we really appreciate your time. Is there anything that you'd like to talk about? Anything that you'd like to promote? Anything upcoming that you'd like the listeners to know about?
No, I'll just say that in addition to the American, we also roll a wide variety of other
Yes,
cigars.
that's true.
We have our JC Newman Pensa factory in Esteli, Nicaragua, which is the second largest factory there, and that's where we roll our Brick House cigars, Perla Del Mar, El Baton, our Quorum bundled cigars, and a bunch of others. And we've also been partners with the Arturo Fuente family for 30 plus years now, and they make our Diamond Crown Classic and Maximus and Julius Caesar and Black Diamond cigars, and our Cuesta Rey cigars as well, and we sell their cigars in the United States, and so we have a wide variety of handmade cigars on the market. And I think when I walk into a humidor in a retail store, a lounge around the country, I always think to myself, what really separates us being JC Newman and our partners, the Arturo Fuente family, is that we are both two 4-generation, 100-plus-year-old family businesses that have been making cigars for more than a century. And so, as both companies, we're very personally invested, and in it, which means that we want to make sure that every cigar is right, and that it's as perfect as it can be. And we really appreciate you for helping us tell our story and sharing the enjoyment of cigars with your listeners. And so happy to hear that you're enjoying the American.
Yeah. Now, to your point there, I am a big fan of the Brick House. I like the
as am I.
I prefer.
Thank you.
I really like. I'm a big fan of the Mighty Mighty size. I'm a 6x60 kind of guy. So the fact that you guys offer that, I love that, both in the Maduro and the Connecticut. And I know Jeff is a regular smoker of the Quorums.
I actually am. I like the Toro shade grown. So I enjoy those cigars. I do a lot of traveling, and the thing I like about it, for me, let's be honest, I'm cheap. And everybody that listens to the podcast knows that, because I've said it over and over. But it's a very affordable cigar. So if you're going to be doing a lot of driving, and, like I do in my Jeep, I'll light up a cigar when I get going somewhere. And, it usually takes me about an hour to finish a cigar as I drive wherever I'm going. And it's one of those things where, I can have a cigar, I can enjoy it, but it's a little more affordable for me. But again, breaking out a brick house. We have a store here in the St. Louis area that had a promotion going on, and it was buy 5 brick house, and we got a free ashtray. So I have a couple of your ashtrays that I started stacking those up like cordwood as I went there. So
Thank you.
yeah, no, that sits on my back deck proudly and is in use quite a bit.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, two things there. The first with Quorum, it's the number one selling cigar brand out of Nicaragua right now. And the reason is it's because it's just an incredible value. And I appreciate you referring to it as an affordable cigar. Sometimes people call it a cheap cigar, but I really hate that term because it's a high quality handmade product, and it's got a great flavor. It burns well. We age the tobaccos that go in it, just like a box cigar like Brick House, but because of the efficiency of our factory and the fact that we're an old company, we're able to roll it at a pretty affordable price, and it's a really good cigar, and it just does really well, and so really can't go wrong with Quorum. And then with Brick House too, the one thing I'll mention about Brick House is that when you open up a box of Brick House or look at one of those ashtrays that you have and you see the historic Brick House cigar label, that was my great grandparents' house in Austria-Hungary. My grandfather my great grandfather told the story that he was born in Austria-Hungary in 1875, and he was born in a small village. And in that village, the family house was the only house made out of brick.
Oh.
And on the first floor was a sort of a general store / tavern. It was kind of like a community gathering space. On the second floor is where my family lived. And when they immigrated to the United States, along with so many others in the late 1800s, and my family settled in Cleveland, and there it was the height of the Industrial Revolution. It was a big, bustling, humming city. It was loud and dirty, and just full of life. But my great-grandfather missed his homeland. He missed the pastoral setting of being out in nature with animals and clean air and pastures. And so in the 1920s and 30s, he made Brick House cigars as kind of like a throwback to where he was born. And so every time I open up a box of Brick House, I always look at the label and see that was the house where my great-grandfather was born into, and it was one of his earliest brands. And so it's a very special brand for us, and really appreciate hearing that you guys enjoy it.
I really like knowing that you guys have so much family history tied into your brands and your products. That it adds an extra level of kind of specialness to what you guys are putting out, knowing that there's so much of your own family history and so much of yourselves wrapped up into your products.
Well, it's who we are. It's who our family and our company is. And, the great thing about the cigar industry is that we are an industry of families and family businesses, with a few small exceptions. I mean, that's what our industry is. And whether it's the Fuente family, the Padron family, Perdomo family, we can go on and on. We're a bunch of families, many of us who've been doing business together for decades and generations. And so while we may be competitors in one sense, we're all friends, and there's a common belief that the premium cigar industry is stronger when we are all in it together. In other words, like, we really like competition. We really like having new small companies, people starting to make their own cigars. All of that sort of energy and vibrancy is really healthy for the cigar industry. And so we think there's plenty of room for everybody to be successful in the cigar industry. And we hope that continues to be the case.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because as we've been doing this podcast now, The Cigar Pulpit, for months and months,
yeah,
we have gotten to meet, several of the cigar manufacturers, several of the members of the families, And it's funny to hear you say what you just said, because that's what we're finding throughout the entire industry. It's not just you saying it, it's how everyone actually feels.
Well, I think it's true, and it's one of those things that's just unique about the premium cigar industry that you don't find with the people who make toilet paper or toothbrushes. It's just something special about the handcrafted premium cigar industry.
Well, Drew, thank you very much for all of your time. This has been just a fantastic conversation, and we've really enjoyed getting to know the backstory of both you, your company, and the American as we sit and enjoy the American.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me this afternoon, and so happy that you're able to enjoy the American, and just want to invite you and all your listeners to come visit us in the historic cigar city of Tampa, Florida next year, and to be able to see our El Rolo factory. We'd love to have you there and help us celebrate our family and our company's 125th anniversary next year.
Most definitely. Do you guys have a date on the calendar for when you're looking at kind of kicking that off, or is it still kind of up in the air and people can...
So we expect our restoration to be complete and to reopen the factory to the public in late February. We don't have an exact date then, but starting around late February, our factory will be open for visitors and tours and rolling classes and so forth Monday through Friday, and we'd love to have you guys visit.
Yeah.
That may have to be a spring Nick and Gator experience.
I think it might. So
Nice.
in terms of following JC Newman on social media, you guys, where are you all at?
So our website is jcnewman.com, and you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, and it's just JC Newman, and we'll love to connect with you on social media and hopefully meet you in Tampa.
Perfect.
I think we can make that happen.
Yep. Well, Drew, thank you.
Looking forward to it.
Thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Of course. Nice. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, as we leave here, I got to tell you, I'm loving the cigar. I'm halfway through the cigar, and I haven't ashed yet. Nick's ashed 2 or 3 times now, and I'm just hanging on because it's so well constructed, and it's just a beautiful cigar.
Well, thank you so much for saying that. You know, there are a lot of wonderful cigars in the world, but there truly is no cigar like the American, and just so happy that you're enjoying it, and that's what it's all about. We make these cigars to tell the story and to be enjoyed, and so happy that you're able to enjoy it.
Well, once again, we really want to thank Drew Newman for coming on and talking with us about this cigar. This is just, I can't say enough good things about the American. I know when I talk to people about this cigar, they've kind of had some hesitations, like, can an American cigar stack up with Dominican and Honduran and
all day.
Whatever? And
all day.
I will safely say 100% yes, all day.
Now, Nick, I know you could tell that Mr. Newman, when I would gush about the cigar, and I was gushing about the cigar because it's really good, but you could tell he was being very humble about that. Am I lying about my ash?
Nope, you haven't ashed yet.
No,
Jeff
this thing is a thing of beauty.
He is stacking dimes and working on a perfect smoke over there. Although it is lagging, it's starting to sway just a little bit there. You might want to swivel.
Do a little rotate.
And at some point, you're going to get to the point that you're going to have to crane the head back and actually take a draw off of it so that you can start keeping it vertical.
But yeah, I'm shocked at how well this little Robusto is doing.
It is holding together nicely over there.
What are you getting on flavor?
I know you're making fun of me about the toasted bread, but I'm still getting kind of toasted bread and kind of a leatherish kind of
yes. Okay,
thing.
I'm getting the leather and some pepper now. I'm on the back third.
Really not getting pepper.
That's
the one thing I will say. I haven't really gotten much in the way of pepper off of this cigar at all.
Maybe that's just because I'm drawing through a beautiful ash.
Have you retrohaled?
I did. You watched me. And I think you were scared to death I was going to bust out coughing.
Yeah, I was going to say. But anyway, so no, this is I have really enjoyed this cigar. This has been a really fantastic experience.
It's good on the retrohale. I just did another one.
Okay.
You watched me.
I did.
You saw it go down.
And you didn't hack up
No.
alone.
This is a very, very good cigar.
Well,
Where do we find them? That's the problem.
Well, and that is the little bit of an issue is with only a couple people rolling it and everything. I know that it is extraordinarily limited. I mean,
is it more available East Coast or South?
I couldn't tell you that. The place that Adam Stevens grabbed one for us is in.
And by the way, thank you, Adam.
Yes, super big thank you. Is in Pennsylvania. So for what it's worth, ours came from Pennsylvania. I know that Two Guys Smoke Shops.
That would make sense.
Cigar
a lot
Authority
of
guys.
The tobacco is coming from there, and it would make sense that they're available there for purchase.
True.
Yeah.
I mean, they're rolling them in Florida, so they'd have to ship them back.
But you know what I'm saying. The tobacco is being grown there, so that's kind of a neat tie-in.
It would kind of make sense. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Just a good cigar. Just a good all-around cigar. You're still not getting any pepper though. That surprises me.
I'm really not getting the pepper. I'm just getting it's been pretty. I'd say from about the second half or second third to the final third, it's really been that.
And this has been putting off a lot of smoke.
It definitely does kick out a lot of smoke, and I mean, it's a great cigar. I cannot say enough good things about it. And in truthfulness,
what would we have done if it had been a bad cigar?
Lied through our teeth. No,
but we've never done that. We haven't done that to this point.
I mean,
but that would have been awkward. I mean, thank God it's a great cigar.
I hedged my bets. I kind of, I wondered, or I hoped
we
that
were
it was
out on the ledge on this one.
I hoped that it was going to go well, but
thank God it did. But yeah, this is. Like I said, I have no complaints about the cigar one bit.
I will say all the reviews I've heard about this cigar have been highly positive, so I figured it was probably a safe bet. It was a safe bet that we could do this, and I thought it was really neat to have Drew on talking about it as we were smoking it, just because and he was very humble about it, but by all accounts, he pushed this through. I mean, his dad was on the Cigar Authority and basically told the story of how Drew came to him and said, "I want to do this," and he told him "Are you nuts?" and Drew pushed forward and made it happen. And
he was right.
It's definitely a project fulfilled greatly.
By the way, before we wrap up here, I just want to give a shout out to the Cigar Authority. Nice job on your 500th episode.
Yes, and we'll see where they go from there. So.
And that's one of the funny things about this. You would almost consider us competitors, but I love listening to those guys.
Well, and it kind of goes back to what Drew was saying about how there's the friendly competition within the cigar manufacturers. You have all the different families, but they're all friends. But they're in competition with one another, but at the same time. But I kind of look at it in the same way on the podcast side with everything. I mean, I've kind of gotten to know the guys over at Cigar Talk through Instagram quite a bit, and the Cigar Authority.
Did we ever send them that box of Fat Bottom Betties we were gonna ship out?
No, I'll just send it home with Falconer when he comes up here to visit.
Exactly.
I'll save the postage, but and then. But there's a handful of others. I mean, there's a bunch of different shows that I Dad Smoking Cigars is another really good one. Yep. I mean, there's a bunch of these podcasts, and we're all doing the same thing. We're all just getting on the microphone and expressing our love of what we're smoking and what we're enjoying, and it all ultimately is the same. We're heading in the same direction. We don't need to compete with one another.
Yeah.
So
well, and I started to say this earlier, but you were on a roll, so I didn't want to stop you. But we've actually sat with cigar manufacturers, and had some drinks and smoked cigars with them, and watched them talk back and forth, and they're genuinely friends.
Yeah,
yeah. It's not what I would have thought before we started the podcast, because. To me, they were big faceless corporations. And now that I've gotten to know some of these people, the cigar industry is just families.
Yeah.
It's just families. And they do an incredible job. And they put out great products that, one of the things that Mr. Newman said is that a cigar is meant to help you relax and to be enjoyed. And there's a lot of truth to that. Because Nick and I have talked about this a lot, and we've mentioned it on the podcast before. But one of the big things, I've been smoking cigars and pipes since I was 16 years old. Nick started, a year and a half ago?
About a year and a half ago.
Yeah, so he's fairly new to this. But it's one of those things where in the industry we're in journalism, we're going all the time. We're always on call. Something could happen and we have to drop everything and run and cover it.
I had to do that last Saturday?
Yes.
No, Friday night.
Yep.
We had a gas explosion in an apartment, and I had to go up and take pictures of the fire and everything else, and just had to deal with it. And that was 8:00 at night. It was freezing cold out, and I'm putting on shoes and running out in the cold to stand there and get yelled at by firemen for being too close.
And that's one of the things I like about cigars is it forces us to just stop and relax, and we kind of turn off for 45 minutes to an hour, and it's just it's good for the soul.
It is. It is indeed.
Absolutely. Well, Nick, do you want to hit our sponsor real quick?
Yeah, so we have partnered with MyMonthlyCigars.com, and now if you head on over to MyMonthlyCigars.com and sign up for the 4-cigar box for $30, you can get that, and the deal is we will be smoking. Oh, Jeff just lost those ashes.
Party foul.
He just finally, but I'll tell you what, folks,
it was
he
beautiful.
Got through. Show me how much you've got left there.
I'm down to the nub.
He's down to just barely the nub.
It was a smoke too far.
He's definitely past the final, the start of the final third. So he made it quite a ways before that thing finally crashed and burned.
Boy, it's still smoking good too.
Yeah. So, but if you go to mymonthlycigars.com and pick up the subscription for the 4-cigar box, that box is going to essentially be the Cigar Pulpit Care Package. And what's going to happen is every month we are going to smoke those 4 cigars in 4 episodes, so you can get that and you can hang on to those cigars, smoke along with us, and let us know what you think of the cigars within the box. And just when you go over there and you sign up, use offer code PULPIT, PULPIT, and that gets you either 20% off your order of items from within their store, or free shipping off of your first subscription box.
That's awesome. And, we always talk about this, and I've got to throw this out, and I know we sound like a broken record, but we mean it. We're big fans of the brick and mortar store. We're sitting at the Hill Cigar Company right now doing our recording. They have set us up with a beautiful spot here. We have a nice heater.
Yes.
It's the dead of winter already, and we just skipped fall completely.
It's like 35 degrees outside, but it's nice and toasty here in this little room with the heater.
It really is. And but that being said, we're big fans of the brick and mortar. So if you find a cigar you like with the My Monthly Cigar box, ask your store to carry it. Or you know what? They might already be carrying it. It might be a cigar that you've overlooked that you now get a chance to try.
Yep.
And you can go to your brick and mortar then and, keep purchasing that cigar. So I think it's a win-win.
It is. And I'd be remiss in not pointing out the MSRP guarantee with MyMonthlyCigars.com, where the manufacturer retail price of all of the cigars within the box will total or equal or greater surpass the $30 price point for that subscription box. So, like, for example, I think the last couple of boxes have run closer to $45 to $50 MSRP versus the $30 price point to get it through the club. So
that's awesome.
Yep. So go ahead, head on over there and get that.
And again, we've got to say thank you to Mr. Newman for coming on today. Yes. It was a great interview. And, I learned a lot about the family and about the company that I did not know.
No, it was a great, he was very gracious to give us so much time, and I really appreciate it. And I think it added a lot to the experience of smoking the American. So, Jeff, final thoughts on the American there as you're pretty much near the end?
Good all-around cigar. I hope I can track him down.
I was going to say, I hope to get my hands on a few more of them at some point.
If you're somewhere where you can get the American and smoke the American. You're going to enjoy it.
Mm-hmm. I concur completely.
It's got the Gator guarantee.
Gator. Oh, my. This might be a new thing. The Gator guarantee. Mm-hmm. So, well, folks, unless, Jeff, do you have anything else for the betterment of the cause?
I think I've bettered the cause as much as I can.
There you go. You've been on your best behavior today.
You know what?
I will give you a lot of credit. I was really nervous having a interview with a cigar manufacturer and you in on it. This is the first, folks. This is the first one. If you go back and listen, this is the first time Jeff has sat in on an interview with one of the cigar manufacturers.
Now, did you notice the fact that I had some product knowledge questions.
You even did some actual like legit show prep and research there.
And you should have seen Nick's face.
Oh my God, guys! I lit up like I looked at him wide-eyed, like, "Holy shit, you know what you're doing!" I mean, it was amazing.
I own a radio station, for the love of God. I mean, I know how to interview people.
Well, but
he just doesn't trust me.
I don't.
Well, and what's funny, before we
Not
started,
at all.
Nick has been hearing the sound over his headphones, and we were getting set up.
Wow. That was me burning myself, folks.
Yes. So
trying to get that last little bit of life out of the nub, and I just
we need one of those cigar pick things.
I do.
Yeah. Nick has been hearing this noise through the headphones, so every time I would put my headphones down, he would hear this noise, and we're trying to figure out what it is. We're searching all over. We're looking under the table, on the table. Something's making like a funny squeaky sound. You like that? I did my Christmas vacation.
Yeah, I gotcha.
And the funny thing is, it was me the whole time rubbing my shoe on the chair.
Fuck,
but
I knew it was you.
When I would put my headphones on, I would stop doing it. And he didn't realize that it was all coordinated.
No,
so,
I knew it was you.
now
I just couldn't prove it.
The funny thing is, he took his headphones off, and then I told him it stopped. Or it started when he took his headphones off. So he thought it was still going on, even though he couldn't hear me do it with his headphones off because I wasn't doing it. And I triggered him so bad.
Oh, folks, he pushed me right up to the edge right before Drew called. And I'm just sitting here waiting for that phone call, and I'm just on my last nerve already. And then to be sitting here petrified, wondering what kind of I just kept waiting for you to just blurt out in the middle of
America.
Like, exactly.
That's all you expected from me, wasn't it?
All I expected you to do at some point would just be like, America. And like, you know, I knew it. I knew it was going to come. And I'll give you credit, you didn't do it. So
I just jacked with you before we went on the air today.
Oh, Lord.
Here, let me see if I can recreate the sound now. I don't know if anybody's
going to pick that up or not. But yeah, oh dear God. So
yeah, Nick was so triggered.
Anyway, this is what I have to deal with, folks.
It was so much fun. You have no idea, people. You have no idea. Well, guys, thank you so much.
Yes, this has been another sermon from the Cigar Pulpit. I'm Nick. That's Gator. And we want to thank Drew Newman and everybody else. Stay smoky.